have to admit that this is a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. I spent a good while thinking about how to start this, and I think I found a good way to start this. So here goes. A few years ago, I asked a couple of my former foster parents. I've known them since I was 2 years old, since I was first put into foster care, and I've always called them Aunt Lana and Uncle Larry. A few years ago, I asked them to. I asked them if they would go out to lunch or dinner with me because I wanted to say something to them. I didn't give them any clues. Just I kept it completely ambiguous like that. Didn't tell them anything. And they trusted me. They knew I wasn't wasting their time or anything. They knew it was important. So we go out to lunch, the three of us, and we eat. And then I say what I wanted to say, which was that they are the parents that I wish I had. When I first met them when I was 2 years old, they were the friends of my first foster parents. And then they, years later, about 5 years later, became my next foster parents. And then I was adopted and no longer living under their roof. But in the short time I lived under their roof, I thought they're truly amazing people. And I've always thought that. I told them what they meant to me. I wanted them to hear it because it occurred to me not long before that people should tell those they love what they mean to them before they die. What good is a eulogy if the person it's about can't hear it? You hope they can hear it in heaven, but you don't really know for sure, do you? You take it on faith. But I think, I don't believe this is our home here on earth. It's not our true home. But if you're going to say what someone means to you while you're here on earth, why not make it so that they can hear it while they're here on earth too? I just don't see the logic in waiting until after they're gone. So I made sure that Aunt Lana and Uncle Larry, as I call them, heard it. I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to wait until they're gone to say it in front of a crowd that it's not meant for. Make some performance out of it. I didn't want to do that. They mean too much to me. I didn't want to do any nonsense like that. It brought them to tears. And hell, I'll admit it even nearly brought me to tears, articulating how much they mean to me. Especially when they told me that none of their former foster children have ever said anything like that to them. And they took care of about 300 foster kids throughout their lives. This video is, I don't really want to call it a eulogy. Don't really even want to think of it that way. But I guess it's the closest I'll get to that for someone I loved like a sister, named Christine, who died a week before I recorded this. I didn't find out she died until 5 days later. And it hit me harder than I thought it would. I have a video named You Can't Save Everyone. In that video, I tell the story of how I came to meet Christine. The story, that video, emphasizes her sister, Amanda, a lot more because Amanda was a lot more troublesome. The short version of that story is I met a guy at church, even though I was an atheist at the time. I met a guy at church because my best friend, who's always been a Christian, wanted me to go to church with him. And he introduced me to this guy named Justin, who was turning his life around. He made a mess of his life, and he was turning his life around, making a genuine effort to change, to improve, all for God's glory. And one night he brought his girlfriend named Amanda and her sister. All three of them were, well, I don't know if they were completely sober or not, but all three of them had a history of drug addiction and alcoholism as well. Justin was turning his life around, and by that point he had, for the most part, and he wanted his girlfriend and her sister, he wanted them to turn their lives around as well. And they were both, Amanda and Christine were both making that effort because he was. He meant a lot to both of them. For 3 weeks, I was getting to know Justin, seeing his progress, and then just later in the same month that I had first met him, I find out that he died in a car crash. After he died, I chose to do everything I could to help finish what he started. His girlfriend Amanda and her sister, they were so close to turning their lives around. I didn't want that to go to waste. With the death of someone so close to them, surely they were going to relapse. So I did everything I could for about 6 months to help them. During those 6 months, the one who needed help the most was Amanda. Christine relapsed a little bit, but she relatively remained stable, relatively sober. She didn't really fall off the deep end like Amanda did. And I made this effort for 6 months because that's all I had the strength for. Amanda got better because of my help, but once she got better, she wanted nothing to do with me anymore. She didn't throw me out of her life outright, but she kind of sent that message in a way, and I took it and accepted it, and I haven't seen her since. Christine, though, I was always relatively on good terms with. And as I said, Christine didn't need as much help as Amanda did. Whenever I was trying to figure out where Amanda is, what junky friends that she's crashing with, that kind of thing, I needed to go to Christine for that information. And she was helpful. She trusted me to not, as they call it, snitch. Because, all of these people, like they and their friends, were all involved in drugs, theft, all kinds of things. Rather ugly world that they came from. And I was the one person in their lives who had nothing to do with any of it, including no history of substance abuse, no history of drinking. Christine and I clashed a couple of times. I could probably count on one hand how many times we clashed. It wasn't much, it wasn't often. It happened, but it wasn't often. Right in the middle of this 6-month period, because I was trying to help both of the sisters, and Amanda needed a lot more help, but I didn't forget about Christine. One day, this was March 6th, 2012, like right in the middle of this 6 month period that I was trying to help the sisters. One day I asked Christine if she wants to hang out an entire day to ourselves, just me and her. Wanted to take her shopping, wanted to buy her something nice, just to give her one day off from this awful life she had. One day away from all this stress, one day away from her friends that were a bad influence on her, even some relatives, not just Amanda. Just one day away from all of it. That was the most I could do for her. I didn't even have a car at the time. I didn't have much to give, but I still wanted to give what I could to both of them. And so anyway, I one day just asked Christine, "Do you want to hang out for a day? I'll buy you something nice from the mall." She said, "Yeah, sure." And then we did. Spent the whole day together, just having fun. That was the only day I ever saw Christine be so carefree. She was playful. I'd never seen her be playful before. She almost looked happy. When we got to the mall, she wanted, I told her, I'll buy you any one thing you want. She wanted to buy some really nice jeans, so she tried on a few, and when she picked one, I bought them for her. I don't remember how the rest of the day went, but I certainly remember how happy she looked. That was the only time she looked happy to me. I'm not saying it was the only time in her life. I'm not saying that. Just from what I saw, it was the only time she looked happy. And then I went back to focusing almost entirely on her sister, helping her sister. Christine, just like her sister, did not have good choices in boyfriends or friends. And despite all of that, she still made relatively good choices for someone who didn't know any better. She was a mother. She had I think her daughter was 2 at the time. And then after that 6 month period of trying to help them both, I guess Christine had another kid. And after that 6 month period, and as you guys know, this was in 2012, Christine and I would randomly run into each other throughout the years following for the next, I don't know how many years it was. I think the last time I saw her was actually 2021, 22 at the latest. The last time I actually saw her in person. So I'll just rewind a bit. The first time we saw each other after all of this, after that 6 month period of hell, and you guys can watch that video to hear that story. But after that, the first time I saw Christine was, I believe it was 2 years later. She posted on Facebook that she needed help moving. She needed help from someone who could drive, someone who did not have a suspended license. She and her boyfriend did. I didn't even hesitate to say, "Sure, I'll help. I'll help you move." I drove the U-Haul and everything. Another time I ran into her, I was taking the bus. I was just getting off of work where I was working at the time, and I was taking the bus home. And she got on the bus, to my surprise. I was nowhere near where I thought she lived. But, there she was. And unless I'm forgetting something, there was one more time we ran into each other out of the blue, and that was in 21 or 22. I was at work, different job. I was at work, and she showed up there, and that was definitely far away from where I thought she lived. very far. And yet there she was. Every time we ran into each other, we gave each other a really big hug. Looking back at all these years, talking to Christine at random, running into her at random, our relationship was, it was kind of like, if a man and a woman who aren't related could actually be platonic friends, because I say all the time that men and women cannot be platonic friends, and I still believe that. But if something like that were to work, it could really only be in the form that I had it with Christine. We hardly ever saw each other. We hardly ever spoke. The only time we saw each other was when we randomly came across each other, or if one of us randomly messaged the other. But we never actually saw each other after 2012 in a planned way, except for when I helped her move. And her boyfriend was there the whole time. But Christine and I, like, we understood it. We're just friends, and I'm not trying to imply that there was any like struggle to keep it that way. There wasn't. We were not interested in each other more intimately than that, ever. Not even There was not even a single instance of crossing that border. But there was still a lot of love there. There was still a lot of affection. She trusted me. She knew I cared about her, and I wasn't just trying to use her for something. I never asked for anything in return from her. But still, it was better that we kept a distance from each other. And I realize now that I took that a little too far, the distance thing, because she's gone now. I don't think she was saved. And I never had a chance to tell her what she meant to me. Christine was honest. That's a rare thing to see in people, especially as you guys know my views from women. Honesty, hard to come by. But Christine, as far as I could tell, was always honest with me. I remember posting on Facebook once, years ago, like 10 or so years ago. I remember posting, do some people just want to be miserable? Is that their actual form of happiness, is being miserable? And Christine was the only person who responded, and she said something along the lines of, yeah, probably. That's the kind of honest that she was. I'm not even 100% sure if she was referring to herself there. That's the kind of person she was. And that interaction it's always remained with me. I never forgot about that. And her response kind of taught me that, yeah, maybe some people really are, like, the closest they ever get to being happy is being miserable. Another thing that happened throughout the years since 2012, this was shortly after I had my daughter, and I told her I have a daughter now, and she was thrilled. She was the only person from that entire story who was excited to hear that I'm a father. The only one. Amanda knew. I told Amanda. I messaged Amanda as well, but Amanda didn't really seem to care. Christine was happy for me, though. And one day, I messaged her asking, I was going to ask for help on how to take care of a little one by yourself, because that's the situation I was in, and I'm still in to this day. But I had to start by saying, like, sorry for, sometimes I'm really difficult. Actually, let me check. I still have the messages. Let me check to see what I actually said. Yeah, I said, would you be willing to help me with something? I understand if you won't. Things have never been perfect between us. And, we almost never clashed, but it still did happen once in a blue moon. And the whole thing, the whole story of, what happened in 2012, that 6 month period, um, a lot of ugly shit went down then. And even though I sent this message 7 years later, I was still feeling bad about the things I did wrong, the times that I was impatient with them, both of them. So I was apologizing for that. And Christine responded in a way I really didn't expect. And this has always remained with me as well. She said, "Well, I thought we were fine. I was just a bitch because you are strong willed. What's up?" That response, it's not just honest, it's also forgiving and understanding. She said, "I thought we were fine." She didn't think anything was wrong between us, ever, I guess. And then those words, "I was just a bitch because you are strong willed." I have thought about that every so often ever since she wrote that. Never quite knew how to interpret it, but it's always stuck with me. Christine had a lot of bad influences in her life. And she never said this to me outright, but I think she knew she could trust me. She acted like she trusted me. Not just and in just about every way. She knew I wasn't any kind of danger to her. She knew I wasn't a creep. She knew I wasn't trying to take advantage of her. Throughout all of these years, like I never had to explain myself to her. I never had to prove myself to her. She understood me and she trusted me. I loved her like a sister. I really did. And she knew that. She understood that. And this response, I think, proves it. She was smart. She was understanding. She had a good heart. And that's what I always understood about her. That's why I'm going to do my absolute best to keep it together here. That's why Christine always held a special place in my heart. It's why I always cared about her. It wasn't often, but I periodically checked up on her. The last time we spoke was in July of 2025, little less than a year ago. I genuinely loved her. Underneath all those mistakes, because it seemed like she was never around good people, like really ever. I won't explain that too much, but for the circumstances that she was born and raised and spent her adult life in, she was never surrounded by good people, and yet I could still see that she had a heart of gold underneath all of those mistakes that she made. She always meant a lot to me. She always will. I spent a lot more effort in 2012 during that 6 month period. I spent a lot more effort trying to help Amanda. I was a lot more focused on Amanda because Amanda was a lot more troublesome. But I think the one that I was always more attached to, for lack of a better word, was Christine. We couldn't have been closer friends without it getting weird because, I still very much believe men and women cannot be platonic friends. The distance we kept from each other was necessary, I think, because I was never interested in her like that, and I'm sure she was never interested in me like that. That's the only way it can work, really. Keep your distance. Go years without talking to each other and just check up once in a while. Just keep it at that, you know. But I clearly assumed that there was always another day. I could always wait another day to tell her what she meant to me. The things that she taught me without even trying to. The impact that she's had on my life. I never told her any of it. You guys want to know another thing about me? Well, here it is if you haven't figured it out yet. I have quite a soft spot for people who I genuinely believe are good people. People who have a good heart. I have quite the soft spot for them. Christine was one of those people. Oftentimes when somebody dies, people exaggerate what that person meant to them. And I understand why we do that. It's just our way of honoring the dead. But, you know, I'm not going to show the receipts to the world, but I have plenty of receipts that prove it. Christine always meant a lot to me. I always cared about her. I always loved her like a sister. And then suddenly she's gone. And I don't know if I'll ever see her again. 14 years, I had a chance to tell her what she meant to me. Tell her the things that she taught me. Anything, everything. And I didn't. Right before I started recording this, I went to Justin's Facebook profile. Still can't believe how many years it's been since he passed. And I thought I remembered seeing Christine post on his profile a few years ago, and sure enough, she did. Oh, fuck. And she posted on Justin's profile a very loving message telling him how much she misses him. And she ended it by saying, "Till I see you again." And reading that message, I can't believe it because they're both gone now. When Justin died, it stung. When I learned Christine died, it stung. Still stings. I see that loving message she wrote him. And they're both gone now. They're both gone now. I always saw so much good in them, and they're both gone so early. Never forget to tell people what they mean to you when they can still hear it from you. Don't wait until they're gone. That's all I have left to say.
I'm just kidding.
Please continue.
What am I continuing?
Just your exercises.
Okay.